everyone to another episode of Beyond the Case, which is a podcast where global leaders from Harvard Business School's OPM community join in a personal capacity and they share the real decisions, failures, mental models, and life principles that go behind building enduring companies. My guest today is Felix Kues. Felix, how are you?
Thank you so much. Yes, I'm very well. Thank you so much for having me here.
Great. Felix, do you just want to introduce yourself, talk about your company, and tell us what you do?
Absolutely. So my name is Felix Kues, born and raised in Germany. I had two software companies before, always in the AI deep tech field. But venture fund around 6.5 years ago, investing in pre-seed deep tech companies, around 10-50% defense, and the rest civilian use cases, everything from neural networks to vision recognition to federate machine learning applications for enterprises in the US government. And always very passionate about deep tech, obviously early stage companies and technology itself. So there's a lot happening in terms of AI, Gen AI, and everything right now in our industry. And then as well, during OPM, started a second company besides a fund that is actually an AI for investors and VC and venture capital funds and family offices.
Incredible. You started the second company during OPM?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So OPM gave me the bug basic back because we were I was running the fund for 6.5 years now. And it's fun and everything. Don't take me wrong. The fund itself, we fully automated everything. So we don't have analysts, associates, or principals in there. We only have partners because all our operations are fully automated with AI. So everything from sourcing to due diligence to legal background checks to competitor research, patent research, even right now to the grading and assessing a company and their potential is fully AI automated. So the human basically interacts with these massive data sets and with the research in a much more efficient way, because what the AI cannot solve is really making investment decisions. That's really where we coming in, but it obviously can do a lot of other things. And again, we started around 4 years ago, obviously 4 years of R&D right now, went in there, and then doing OPM, I'm always I would say techie and builder at heart. I just love entrepreneurship. And during OPM, I saw everyone around me having cool companies, people use their products, and I'm, sitting there in the middle as a kind of a finance middleman. And this really didn't set well to me and gave me the entrepreneurship bug as well, where it was okay, cool, then let me start another software company right away, or basically through OPM.
Incredible. And so before you started your latest
Mhm.
business, I believe that's Aurelia Ventures, correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, that's a fund.
And you had this global startup journey. Could you talk
Mhm.
about your early experiences, which might have
Oh,
shaped your interest in building companies?
it's what has shaped my interest in building companies. I think that's a predisposition I was born with, to be honest with you. I always describe myself as unemployable, and so that's it's just, I don't know, maybe nature. In general, my whole family, everyone does something in entrepreneurship, and so nobody of them really is somewhere the kind of corporate hero. And so that was just a very natural way for me, to be honest with you. Always as well, very much my own mind, and wanted to go my own way, and didn't really fit into this box of Germany where I grew up back then. And so the first moment basically had the chance of leaving Germany. I basically started my grad school in Spain at ESADE. And then afterwards, basically was out and about, moved to Colombia. I had a venture studio there. Afterwards, a fintech in India and Dubai. And then I had tech in Hong Kong and Singapore. And so always seeing opportunities, going all in, scaling them, and basically working very hard. That's really, I think it was from my birth already inside of me that I didn't need to look for.
So you've built and led companies in, like you said, Hong Kong, UAE, India,
Yeah,
Latin America.
that
How
was a
did
venture studio.
operating across so many different cultures shape the way that you think about leadership and decision making?
Yeah. Um, it's very interesting that you asked me that. I recently had actually a conversation with my brother, who is not the opposite of me, but he stayed in Germany. He didn't went out. Obviously, he does holidays and everything, but didn't live in that many countries. And so I think I don't want to discredit my IT as a young 20-year-old of just doing things and not really realizing the complete impact and what could happen. So this basically it comes in there as well. But over the years, basically looking back right now on the decade, basically a little bit more of the decade of doing all that, it's shaping everything in you. The kind of people you usually resonate with and you're connecting with becomes very, very small because they're just there are not that many people anymore that have this kind of shared experience of very international background, entrepreneurship and everything. And by the way, big thing about OPM that everyone is very international, very entrepreneurial, obviously, and it's beautiful to connect finally with a tribe again that's very hard to find out there in the wild usually. And so, how has it shaped everything in terms of leadership? I think it really gives you a very deep and holistic cultural understanding that I'm even surprised sometimes about myself when I am in certain kind of countries, my whole behavior, language, and just the Felix changes a little bit and completely adjust to these countries. For example, I have a couple of favorite cities where I'm just spending sometimes a little bit of time. So one of them is Bangkok, another one is Hong Kong, then Tokyo, same with Medellin, Colombia. And so every time I'm in one of those places, first of all, I feel like home because I've been there so much time before. And the second thing is I just understand the culture so deeply and how that works in this place. And so I, for example, start speaking in a different way and communicating with locals immediately automatic. I don't even need to think about it anymore. And so in terms of leadership and building companies every day, it gives you really super deep cultural understanding of how we are all the same and somehow we are obviously all different, where my strengths are obviously and where my weaknesses are. And so, for example, India, as a German, I would probably only hire immediately Indian general manager who basically deals with all the Indian operations. At the beginning, I thought about I'm going to do it by myself and absolutely failed there, simply because I don't have the cultural deep understanding that is necessary to make it in India. And then the second thing as well, it just makes everything so much easier. And so there's so many learnings and obviously this whole journey in there, but I think it really enhanced the cultural understanding and yeah.
Great. And so looking back at your
Mhm.
time as a CEO, what
Mm.
was one mistake that you might have made which became a defining learning moment for you as a leader?
It's a mistake twice. Interesting because it's a public podcast. I usually those kind of information I only shared like with friends. Didn't do well enough with due diligence on the co-founders. Probably I think this is really a big one. Of like I had two companies where I had unsuitable co-founders. One of them that basically turned out to be a fraud, and the other one just turned out to be not someone who likes marathons, but more like sprints. So like when you do really well, then they're supposed to basically exhausted there, and then it became very hard to basically work together. And so I think due diligence on co-founders and who is really a partner in the company and really understanding, obviously, as well that entrepreneurship is a marathon and not just a sprint. And I think this should be something that were very hard learnings. And because right now, we obviously, when we work with our founders that we invest in, I always tell them finding a co-founder is not like a marriage because I always say, everyone says, hey, it's like a marriage out there. And so like, no, it's not like a marriage because you don't love each other. You only go through hard time, but you don't love each other. And this makes this relationship even harder than a marriage, right? In the marriage, you have like romance and you have like all the things that are intangible, which, make all the beauty, obviously, in a marriage and a relationship. And usually with startups, you just have a lot of really hard times. And so be very careful who you start a company with and really understand as well, even if it's a best friend, you know them for decades, understand the personality of that person. And is this someone who can go consistently through hard times and keep on pushing and is in there for the long game? And be very honest to yourself if that's the right person. So I think this is something that is crucial.
And at what point did you realize that you wanted to go and switch from building companies yourself to helping
Yeah.
others build their companies? And how did that mindset change? How
Yeah.
did your mindset change in that shift?
Yeah. The mindset shift, the conscious decision, to be honest with you. Last company, I was honestly very tired, very exhausted. I was like, okay, I don't feel as well I have it in me to just do another sprint and another all in. I found the entrepreneurship as well a very lonely journey because as a founder, you always, especially in the early stage companies, you're in the driver's seat, you're hustling all the time, you're moving it forward, and you're basically so engaged. And I always found it a very lonely journey. Obviously, we had co-founders, employees, and everything, but it's still like as a founder, you always have a kind of a different kind of perspective, obviously, on things and kind of a role. How much can you share actually with everyone? And by switching over to our ventures, so basically starting our ventures, and our focus is like we're not only investing, but what we mostly do is basically working with early stage founders and helping them basically survive the first 2 years. Basically, we help them to raise different fundraising rounds. We work with them on GTM and growth, connect them to partners and VCs and so on. And so we're much more hands-on with each team, and we're really coming from a perspective of being hands-on. So we always say if someone just wants capital, we are a really bad partner. Like we're actually someone who sits in the trenches with the founders and helps them to grow. And this was something that I personally are very, very passionate about. And B, I wanted always to just see what other people are working on. Like I wanted to have this more wider perspective and just see other brilliant entrepreneurs and how they're scaling companies, what are they doing, and so this kind of curiosity was really driving the switch over to venture capital. And indirectly, obviously, I thought, hey, maybe in 3 or 4 years, maybe I see some cool team, maybe we're going to help them to co-found or whatever it is. It never happened, but I just met so many brilliant and incredible entrepreneurs along the way and had insights in so many different industries that would have never happened before, or like I would have never seen before. And so it's a very rewarding journey if you're actually engaging. and really, really feel for the founders, really sit with them in the trenches. If other VCs maybe just give capital and write a check and say, okay, let's move on to a new quarterly update, then it's different. But we're founders, for example, very senior in the Department of War, Department of Defense, like the kind of things they share and the kind of things how they see the world is like I would have never seen otherwise, right? How would a German have any connection to the Department of Defense or get any insights there? It's so absolutely unheard of. But just to me through the founders and seeing it through the lens, like it really opened the world to many things and just showed me so many other things, which I obviously greatly appreciate and which was a very rewarding journey there.
Fundraising is one of your cores.
Yeah.
What do most founders misunderstand about fundraising when they first approach investors?
I feel everything. The reason is fundraising. If you don't do it from a PE fund or like later stage and growth capital, then fundraising is just very opaque by design. That's really why it's called private equity and not public markets, meaning many founders only know the founder perspective. And so as well, for my first company, I thought all VCs are the same and like, they have capital and they invest in early stage companies. How hard can it be? And so it couldn't be further away from the truth because each VC is so niche and they have such a small little area where they actually can invest in. So they have investment theses, legal documents with their LPs. They cannot just wildly invest. Oh, this sounds great. This sounds great. So they're very, very niche. The problem is just all investors on the website, and I still have to find one which actually gives complete clarity and brutality about like actually what they're doing. Everyone says like, hey, we're the first believer in your company and we're backing you earlier than anyone else and all these kind of things. And it couldn't be further away from the truth because they usually maybe Series A something, so much later stage. And so what VCs say outside is very, very different from what they're actually doing inside. And there's very little interest of connecting this with reality, because if you would go on your website and say, we only invest in companies with at least $50,000 in monthly recurring revenue, one technically deep tech founder that had built a company before and exited before, only in cybersecurity for application security. So you put your criteria here, then you put your funnel very, very thin and you potentially don't see deals anymore. So that's the reason why they write, hey, the earliest believer in your company, you don't need anything from you, just have an incorporated company. You obviously open the funnel so much more. So everyone's opening the funnel unreasonably wide to just get as much deal flow as possible, but then after one or two conversations, all of them basically fall out. And so I think that's something what many people don't understand about fundraising, how it actually works. What are the real driver of VCs? How do they assess the companies? What is really important for them? And it's impossible to figure out because they would never tell you. Right? If you, for example, would raise capital, you go to a VC and say, like, hey, VC, what are you actually looking for? As if that person would tell you exactly what they're looking for, because then you could reverse engineer, make the company look like that, and then you would get an investment. They will never tell you. And that is the reason why it makes it so hard for founders to figure it out, to be honest with you. And that is the reason why the whole industry is so opaque. Fundraising is just extremely difficult. And then let's not even speak about all the underlying currents, all the market changes that are happening. I don't know. I feel like every quarter now for the last 2 years. And so this is a market is shifting tremendously all the time, thanks to Gen AI and obviously all the applications there.
Right. And so after years of building and backing companies, what personal principles have you developed that guide how you lead, invest, and make decisions?
I'm coming from a perspective of someone who has lived in many countries, lived along many, many different cultures, who feels more foreign in Germany than, for example, in the UAE. So someone who has a very holistic cultural understanding, and like I always say jokingly, you can throw me, I don't know, in the last corner of Siberia and I'm going to be fine, right? Like I can adjust to any environment, any culture. And even I have biases inside of me where I would assess a company just towards my own bias. And that was very interesting to see because we have 40 partners in total in the fund. So every time we have like an investment meeting and we speak about something, like I have a perspective on one thing and just my inherent Felix bias, another person has another perspective there, and we both are right. And at some moment we were like, hey, we're both right and we both have a certain kind of viewpoint on it. We need to develop something very, very like unbiased as a kind of a grading criteria. That was really as well our way of 3 years ago now, where we started with these kind of very objective criteria. And so basically right now, all of our applications that we're getting in, they're graded across 60 different data points. And each data point is graded on a scale from 1 to 10 with each of these criteria. And then they have average values or averaged averages between each other, weighted averages. And what's happening right now is that the AI is just grading everything. And then we're reading through it and was like, I would have given them more points. Like, that's not 5 points. That would be easily a 7.5. And then we look back to the grading, and it was like, no, that's actually 5 points. That's actually pretty accurate. And so I think that is something that was for us most mind-opening, where we say, okay, how can we bring really strong objective assessments to humans, which are inherently, even the most open-minded ones, even biased, and just make it very, very fair process.
What got you interested in applying for OPM, attending OPM? What were some of
Yeah.
the biggest takeaways from that?
But what's funny about OPM is before I applied at OPM, I spoke with like, I think 10, maybe nine different OPMers, different years, everything from, I don't know, 30 to maybe even earlier. And I spoke with all of them. Everyone gave me like a really good overview and things and everyone said one thing. And they were like, "Oh yeah, it's life changing. This program is life changing." I was like, "Okay." I was like thinking, it's a really big word. Like it's like it takes for me quite a lot to consider something life changing. I think right now completed unit 2 and starting unit 3 in September. Like it's life changing. Like there's no other way to describe it. And so it's so interesting to see how all the things I told me became so true. In terms of OPM, why OPM? Why? Well, of course, many reasons, million of reasons actually. I was looking at as well at another program just because both of them on the outside looked very, very similar. And obviously do your research before, right? And so I spoke with participants of the other program and then I spoke with OPMers before. OPMers told me, oh, life changing. And many of them gave me really great feedback of everyone works very hard. Everyone actually studies there. Like this is not a walk in the park. You prepare. Like if you think it's 3 weeks is actually the right time for it, prepare a month before all the cases. This is actually what it really takes. So it's basically 1 month and 3 weeks. You make friends potentially for life. Like everyone gets super close with each other. Everyone openly shares. There's nobody there ever gave me a business card because nobody needs to pitch each other anything, right? The beautiful thing about OPM, what many people said, and it's obviously absolutely true, is that we all are right. Nobody of us is wrong because all of us, like entrepreneurship is so unique and so difficult because it's an experience and learned craft. It's not an academic craft, meaning you need to do it and you need to fail and you need to have success to actually understand entrepreneurship. Nobody can teach you entrepreneurship, right? Otherwise, you can just do a 2-year study and exit a company afterwards for a billion. It's not happening like that. So you need to learn it. And this OPM has obviously very high barrier of entry. Only the most successful entrepreneurs get in there. Every one of us was super successful before, made it there, and comes from a moment of expertise. For me, OPM is really the opportunity, once in a lifetime opportunity to learn from 185 people, 184 other experienced, successful entrepreneur lifetimes. This is something that no book can teach you, like nothing. This is something that I cannot even live it. I cannot even pay more money for it. I cannot live 184 times over. That's it. I only have one life. I think that makes your OPM so unique that everyone shares so openly. Nobody's in competition with each other, and everyone just really puts their knowledge in there. And adding as well, obviously, the whole case studies and the living group. And by the way, our listeners know what a living group is and how this whole concept works and everything. Are they somehow aware, or like,
The
or
OPM
should we?
program, you mean?
Yeah, or does it know or living groups? That's equity, or should we basically maybe for everyone to
Yeah,
introduce
yeah.
what a living group is?
I'm guessing they're familiar, but I'm happy to
Okay.
just add a blurb on that. That
Yeah.
in PM we have
Yeah.
living groups that are created of maybe 5 or 6 people who stay together for the entire
Yeah.
unit. They become very close. They share openly. They become like
Yeah.
a closely held family.
Yeah.
Meet every
Yeah.
morning. Discuss cases that have to be spoken about that day.
Yeah, there's basically people like you individually prepare obviously all the cases before, and then during your time at campus, you're basically living with your living group. You obviously have your own room and everything, but you have a shared kind of an office. You have a shared living room experience, shared kitchen with each other, and you're basically preparing with these people. You're briefing the cases. You're afterwards speaking about the cases. And the cool thing is what is happening as a living group because you're so close with each other. You really have full level of psychological safety and trust with each other. Is that every one of us comes from a perspective of expertise and knowledge there. The cases are obviously, they're not biased, but every one of us has a different perspective of how to solve it, right? And that's the beauty of OPM. And there are a million ways of solving it. It's not always one way, it's a million of ways of solving these cases. And so what's happening is, and this gave me really one of the biggest learning opportunities, is speaking from my perspective of the case and saying, like, I would do this and that. And then someone else on the table says, like, no, that's not what you can do. Like, there's no way you can do it because it's family. And I was like, yeah, but fire that person. I was like, no, it's family. You cannot fire that person, even if it's the ex-husband, right? I was like, ex-husband, done, right? Like, come on, fire him. And it was like, no, it's family. You need to do this. And so, and all of us are right. You know what I mean? And so this gave me just this kind of learning and expertise from other sides that I'm like, yes, there's so much more to that. By the way, quickly as well regarding the other program, when I spoke to 8 other people from the other program, they told me, oh yeah, it's amazing. It's like being back to your dorm room times. You party all the time. I was like, oh, I'm out. Okay, cool. That's not what I wanted. That's the complete opposite of what I wanted. I wanted to be together with like hardworking, intelligent people. And so OPM is really that.
Amazing. You put it very well explained. Thanks for that, Felix. Talk to me about a book that might have influenced the way you think or, you had a strong takeaway from.
God, there's so many. One I liked a lot is Never Split the Difference from Chris Voss. So that was a very nice one. It's a negotiation book. I personally just find it absolutely fascinating how the person who actually started at the FBI, the whole negotiation practice, is really going through it. That was a fantastic book. I recently read The Last Kings of Shanghai. Really fascinating story as well. It's about the make of Shanghai and basically of two Jewish family from Iraq that first moved to India, started basically opium trade there, then moved to Hong Kong and Shanghai, and like they basically run the city and then afterwards run Hong Kong. It's absolutely wild. So if you're interested in like family business, family books, and then obviously entrepreneurship, like it's absolutely highly recommended. Gives us a very surprisingly transparent view on how this all develops. And then again, like for someone who lived in Hong Kong, who obviously has a certain interest in like Chinese politics and everything, it's just interesting to see as well old China, how it developed, and Hong Kong obviously as well. Fantastic city. And so I think those two books were really, really great. I feel like there's another one, but I'm not coming to it right now. Those two books are probably the most interesting ones recently.
Great. Last question, Felix, is if you could go back to a younger version of yourself and share some tips and advice, what would that be?
My God, that would require that I'm actually listening to myself. So there's like, I feel like as a young entrepreneur, you're like, oh yeah, you know it, you just go for it, and like, so it would really require me being probably the person who would listen to my older self, which I hopefully would do. What would I recommend myself? Probably getting out of Germany earlier. Yeah, that would probably be it. Not just waiting for the answers, not because Germany itself, just get out of your familiar environment where you grew up. I think this is really something that I could recommend like everyone. And this doesn't mean go like work on holiday on an Australian apple farm or something, right? This is not like getting out of your comfort zone, like doing the 1 month trips through Thailand, backpacking. Like this is not what I mean. I mean, get out there and get into uncomfortable situations in other places where you're not home, where you can talk yourself out, right? So probably all of us have that. In your home country, you're just doing things, because you can get away with it, right? You know how to navigate the system, you know how to navigate certain things, and like, you speak native language, you can just navigate it. Do this in another country and really get a good understanding of the world, and potentially as well go in a country that is not similar to your own country. So if I'm German, like going to the US or I could navigate it potentially pretty easily. Go to something like Japan, like Indonesia, something like that, which really breaks you out of your mold. And I think the stronger the culture is, and the stronger the kind of mindset there is, the more you need to be broken out of your mold. And I feel like especially many Germans should be probably broken pretty hard off their mold, because they're these very headstrong people. So I think this is something I would recommend everyone. Like, and by the way, like, be super open about failure, right? It's like, yeah, everyone wants to be the Mark Zuckerberg and, first shot wonder, great, but this is simply not reality. Like, let's be realistic here, right? I think there's something as well that gives you a lot of humility in OPM, because everyone shares very personal stories. All of us had tremendous failures in the past and went through really, really hard times. Nobody of us woke up one morning and said, oh, I have this idea, scaled it over the next 2 months, and then just exited a unicorn. This is not like, I still have to find this person. Every one of us went to struggle. It's a long ride. It's many years. It's decades building something. It's persistency there. It's pushing through adversity. And so like really learn how to struggle, because I feel like the more you're growing up in a society that offers you a lot of comfort, the more you should learn how to struggle, because you're not used to it. And it's good, because struggle is pain and pain is growth usually. And so I would recommend this to everyone, to just go through a little bit of a hard time. Actually, interestingly, I know we're running a little bit out of time, but during my master's, I had one professor, an absolute genius, Ken Morse. He was a guest professor from MIT. And so he was just such a great professor. Obviously, ESADA had many great professors there, but he was like outstanding because he's kind of American Ivy League professor coming for a week. Everyone's super excited about the course and everything. And one thing he said back then, and that resonated with me until today, is if someone was like, okay, hey, Ken, what would you recommend us after we graduate? And he said, like, look for an ODB who makes you really uncomfortable. So ODB, I don't know if I can say this on a PG-13 podcast probably, but it's basically, it's old dirty bastard. Look for an old dirty bastard who lets you work properly, who makes you really uncomfortable, where you just learn a lot. Like, you guys are not meant to be comfortable already. You have not made anything. Look for an ODB who makes you really uncomfortable. I find this such a great advice, because I think this is something that everyone at some moment should go through. Struggle is good and pain is good. Like, it helps to grow basically as a person.
Incredible. I was going to end with that question, but you mentioned Mark Zuckerberg in your last response. I want to ask you one more question. What is the definition of success today? And do you think that's changed over time?
Yeah, obviously it changed over time, for sure. because our priorities and values are changing over time. I'm on a point in my life where it's changing quite a lot over the last couple of years. And so I think someone is successful who, oh my God, we obviously don't have time for that. If any one of you had the session already with Anand, did you have Anand already? Anand Raman? And
Yeah,
like
yeah.
taking the shot?
Take the shot.
Lucky one. We got in unit 2, you got in unit 1. Absolutely mind-blowingly exceptional, moving session. And like, I don't want to say, but I think even someone cried in the class during that session. So
Sorry, which
absolutely
session was
incredible.
that? Are you talking about the closing for Unit 1 or is this a Unit 2 session you're talking
Unit 2 session. It was his closing session, Unit 2 for us. So it was last September. Absolutely incredible. So one thing that resonated with me very well, because it's in my mind the whole time, is like, without love and hope, like, what is the purpose of life? And so it's not about KPIs or about like OKRs. Like, this is not what business is about. It's about love and hope. And I think coming really back to love and hope, how would I say that someone who's really successful in their life is if you actually put your family first and you were consistently there to love the people around you who support you, be amazing dad to your mother, whatever, obviously not generously, like, be a fantastic parent to your children you're growing up, create some really amazing little humans there that gonna have really great lives by themselves, and just prioritize that a lot. I think this is because in the end, like, every one of us doesn't matter with how many zeros we die on a graveyard, it doesn't matter, right? It's so meaningless in the end of the day. And I think, especially in entrepreneurship and especially tech, we always forget this because we're always hunting after unicorns, exits, billions, millions. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It matters who, in the end of the day, is with you and where you share time and who you love and who loves you. And I think this is really success in the end of the day.
Beautiful. Are you saying you had this talk at the end of Unit 2? Take the
Yeah,
shot.
we had to the end of unit 2.
Washington
I
balance
know.
sheets. Amazing. Yeah, we had it at the end of Unit 1 and I just finished Unit 1. So
Lucky you.
quite
Lucky
fresh for me.
you.
Yeah.
What a moving session, to be honest with you. Yeah, I think Harvard is a lot about that. To be honest, this was not super surprising, but it's maybe a little bit surprising how open they communicate and how clear they make that. It's like, make a decent profit decently, obviously,
Yeah.
and enable others to take the shot. We were able to take the shot. We took the shot. Now enable others to take the shot. And nobody there speaks about how much money you do, what you exit, all these kind of things. No, it's about you made it. Now it's your job to help other people to make it and really pay back. And this gets basically preached at HBS and OPM a lot. And so it resonates just with me a lot.
Incredible. What a beautiful way to end the episode. Felix, thank you very, very much. You reminded me so much about some of the conversations we had at the end of Unit 1. And, that makes me feel very nice and warm right now. So appreciate that. And thank you for, some of the other insights you shared. I'm pretty sure anyone listening might find them to be
Yeah.
valuable.